This one is basically how to channel your imaginary friend. Based upon CIA top secret declassified documents. And we used the Bhagavad Gita, and we used the autobiography of a yogi, and some other books. And I mean, if magic's real, and this is how it works according to the government, don't you want to know how to do it? I mean, if they know how to do it and it's real, they're doing it on you. So don't you think it'd be a good idea to know how it works? And I mean, there's a video where I go deep on how the heart creates the vortex and reflecting and all that stuff. Here, in the CIA documents, it shows that you'll see the vortex, or it's not the vortex, it ricochets some stuff, fills the brain properly. I don't know, he explains it quite well in the video or in the podcast thing. So, what I'm really getting at is, I mean, if you've came here to mock and laugh, I mean, everything here, magic-wise, is backed by CIA intelligence and their declassified documents. So, I mean, I play it off as comedy. I pretend. But the reality of this stuff, the likelihood that it's real has a higher percentage than the likelihood that it's fake. And I mean, if we decalcify the body, if we do all the proper techniques, your third eye, your pineal gland is cleansed, you have no toxins in your body, you're not sick, and you'll see your sensory spiritual eyes. Your spiritual eyes will be open. That is what Krishna referred to them as he opened their spiritual eyes. So, in a way, from my perspective, this is how you talk to your imaginary friend. As Krishna would put it, this is how you open your spiritual eyes. So, it's not physically seeing, it's more feeling, as Bruce Lee would say. Don't think, feel. So, this shit is pretty in depth. And they're reflecting it all into the CIA documentation. And, I mean, what would you think if I already gave you the capability to time travel? You just don't understand or believe that it's possible. But this is the gateway process. Pretty sure I did a thing on that before. You should probably check it out. Because after you read this or listen to this, you realize I was telling you already that that's what this is. And the machine, the heart does, it's in your fucking chest. You're a time machine. This is how to time travel. Ain't that cool? Well, disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I am an alchemist, mad scientist. So, in my studies, the CIA says, this is how we time travel. Should we trust them? I don't know. Enjoy.
So, back in 1983, the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency actually declassified this completely bizarre, like highly technical document.
Yeah, it really is a wild read.
Right. And it wasn't about Cold War troop movements or satellite schematics or anything normal like that.
Not at all.
It was this internal report basically confirming that the human brain, under the right conditions, can literally project its consciousness completely outside of the physical body.
Which, I mean, it completely reframes how we look at human potential, right? Because they were investigating states of consciousness that literally transcend space and time.
Yeah, treating the mind not just as this byproduct of biology, but like as an actual energetic receiver.
Exactly. And what's really wild is that the CIA was essentially mapping out the exact same territory that mystics and magicians have been writing about for centuries.
Right, which is just crazy to think about because we usually think of like a medical diagnosis as this pristine binary thing, like you break your arm, the x-ray shows a jagged white line, and that's it, broken.
It's comforting in a weird way because it's visible. You can point right to it.
Exactly. But the second you step into the world of human consciousness, the x-ray machine just shatters. We are so quick to categorize any kind of inner sight as a hallucination or a dream or just, a glitch of an overactive imagination.
Yeah, society dismisses it almost instantly.
Right. But today, we are taking a completely different approach. We are looking at the exact step-by-step training manuals for human consciousness.
Because we really want to understand what is physically, biologically, and energetically happening when a practitioner claims to, step outside the bounds of ordinary reality.
Yeah.
We are basically treating this as internal human technology.
Internal human technology. I love that. And for you, our listener, we've curated a highly customized roadmap for this deep dive. We aren't just going to talk about the theory of astral projection or mystical visions.
No, we are getting into the actual mechanics.
Right? Like how you go from a distracted, chaotic mind to a hyper-focused state, how you pull physical energy from the elements around you, how you trigger the latent sensory organs of the secondary body.
And finally, how you separate from the physical shell entirely to experience what mystics call cosmic consciousness.
It's a huge journey. And to do this, we are synthesizing some of the most profound, dense, and honestly demanding texts ever written on the subject.
Yeah, we're bridging ancient Eastern wisdom with very rigid Western esoteric frameworks and grounding it all in that declassified government research you mentioned at the start.
Right. The stack of sources in front of us is honestly staggering. We've got Paramahansa Yogananda's classic Autobiography of a Yogi, which really represents the absolute pinnacle of Eastern yogic science.
And we are pairing that directly with the intense, almost punishingly practical Hermetic training manual by Franz Barden called Initiation into Hermetics.
Yeah, punishing is a good word for it. Plus, we're weaving in chaos magic perspectives from Peter Carroll's Liber Null, Israel Regardie's monumental work, The Tree of Life, and of course, the CIA's declassified gateway process documents.
And despite their vastly different origins, you have a Hindu Swami, a Czech Hermetic mage, a British occultist, and the U.S. military intelligence apparatus.
Right, quite the dinner party.
Yeah, right. But they are all describing the exact same underlying architecture of reality. And our mission today is to extract the actual actionable exercises from these sources. We want you to understand exactly how someone develops the subtle sensory perception.
Because before anyone can start, floating around the astral plane, we have to deal with the tool we use to perceive anything at all, the mind.
Yeah, you have to start at the foundation.
And the CIA Gateway document uses this phenomenal analogy to explain the baseline state of human consciousness. They compare ordinary awareness to an ordinary lamp in your living room.
Right, so think about the physics of that light bulb. It expends energy generating heat and light, but it does so in a completely chaotic, incoherent way.
Just throwing light everywhere.
Exactly. The photons are scattering in every conceivable direction. It diffuses its energy over a wide area, which is great if you just want to light up a couch, but it has very limited depth or penetrating power. It can't cut through steel.
But the document contrasts that ordinary lamp with a laser. If you take that exact same amount of energy, but you project it with total coherence, so you're synchronizing the frequency and the amplitude of the light waves, you get a disciplined, concentrated stream.
Yeah, and the Gateway report notes that a laser beam contains billions of times the concentrated energy found in a similar surface area on the sun.
Billions. That's wild.
It is, and that is the crucial threshold. In its natural state, your mind is that living room lamp. It's completely scattered. Even right now, part of your brain is listening to this conversation, but another part is regulating your body temperature.
Another part is wondering what you're having for dinner.
Yeah, Or stressing about an email you forgot to send. It is a raging tempest of diffused contradictory energy. So to achieve any kind of expanded consciousness, you must first transform the mind from a lamp into a laser.
Okay, wait, hold on. You're telling me that the CIA believes that if I just sit still and concentrate hard enough, my brain physically alters its energy output to become a laser?
Well,
Because that sounds like a massive leap from just a metaphor to actual biology. What is the actual biological bridge there?
right, and it's not just a metaphor. The Gateway document leans heavily on the biomedical research of a scientist named Itzhak Bentov to explain the exact physical mechanics. And surprisingly, it doesn't actually start in the brain.
Really? Where does it start?
It starts in the chest. It starts at the heart.
Okay, walk me through this.
Yeah.
How does my beating heart turn my brain into a laser?
So when a practitioner enters a state of profound, protracted meditation, their breathing slows down dramatically.
Like almost stopping.
Almost, yeah. And as the breathing slows, it alters the rhythm of the heart. Specifically, the resting state of the heart between beats changes. Bentov discovered that when this happens, the contraction of the left ventricle pushing blood into the aorta creates a physical pulse wave.
Okay.
Because the breathing is so incredibly shallow, this pulse wave travels down the aorta, hits the bifurcation where the artery splits into the legs, and it literally bounces back up.
Wow, like a physical echo of blood.
Exactly, a blood echo. And when the heart rate is perfectly synced with this echo, the reverberation begins to shake the entire human skeleton in a microscopic rhythmic oscillation.
So the whole body is vibrating.
Yes, the body is literally vibrating, and this physical vibration is transferred up the spine and directly into the skull.
And the skull is filled with cerebrospinal fluid.
Right. The third and lateral ventricles of the brain are filled with this fluid. So the rhythmic shaking of the skeleton creates what physicists call acoustic standing waves within this fluid. You are quite literally turning the center of your head into a resonant chamber.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
But, I mean, fluid vibrating is one thing. How does that actually affect my thoughts or my consciousness?
This is where it gets highly technical, yeah? The cerebral cortex, which is the gray matter of your brain, responds to these acoustic standing waves. The mechanical friction of the waves rubbing against the brain tissue generates a piezoelectric effect.
Meaning it creates electricity.
Exactly. It creates a microelectrical current. And this stimulation eventually polarizes the cortex. It creates a unified, coherent electrical circuit across the entire brain. This physical, measurable process is what allows for the phenomenon the Monroe Institute calls hemisync.
Hemispheric synchronization.
Yes, in normal waking life, your left hemisphere, the logical, linear, verbal processor, and your right hemisphere, the spatial, intuitive, holistic processor, they are operating at totally different frequencies and amplitudes.
Right, they're the scattered lamp.
Exactly. But when the acoustic standing waves polarize the cortex, the EEG patterns of both hemispheres snap into perfect synchronization. They become simultaneously equal in amplitude and frequency. The left brain and the right brain merge into a single, coherent receptor. The lamp has literally, biologically, become the laser.
So normally my left brain is like balancing my checkbook, and my right brain is appreciating a painting, and they're totally out of step. Hemisync forces them to march to the exact same drum beat.
Precisely. You are establishing the hardware requirement for inner sight. Without that hardware upgrade, nothing else works.
But how do we actually do this without being plugged into the Monroe Institute's biofeedback machines?
Right.
Because most people don't have that set up in their living room.
Right, and this is where esoteric manuals come into play. Both Lieber Null and Franz Barton's initiation into hermetics are incredibly strict about how to build this laser mind from scratch.
Yeah, they really don't mess around.
No, they don't, and they start with a concept that sounds easy but is actually terrifying. It's called not thinking.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Lieber Null instructs the practitioner to sit motionless, breathe deeply, and begin to withdraw the mind from any thoughts that arise. You don't fight them, you just refuse to engage.
Which is so much harder than it sounds.
It is. The text gives a stark warning. The attempt to do this inevitably reveals the mind to be a raging tempest. People genuinely think they have a quiet mind until they try to hold it entirely empty for just 3 minutes.
Yeah, I want you, the listener, to try this later. Just sit on your couch, set a timer for 3 minutes, and try to think of absolutely nothing. No words, no images, no songs stuck in your head. Just a black void.
Good luck.
Right. If you're like most people, your brain will short-circuit within 10 seconds. The sheer volume of subconscious noise is deafening. And Barton's step-out echoes this perfectly. He breaks it down into thought control, where you just observe the chaos like watching a movie. Then discipline, where you actively suppress specific thoughts. And finally, the complete vacancy of mind.
And once you can hold that mental vacuum, that pristine silence, you have to train the mind to hold a single point of focus without wavering.
Because the vacuum is just clearing the stage.
Exactly. Now you have to direct the spotlight. This is sensory concentration.
Yeah, and Barton gives these hyper-specific, actionable daily exercises in step 2. He tells the practitioner to imagine a clock hanging on the wall. But you aren't just trying to see a vague image of a clock in your mind's eye.
No, it has to be hyper real.
Right. You have to simultaneously visualize the hands, the numbers, and you have to actually hear the pendulum swinging to and fro. You have to engage multiple senses in your imagination simultaneously and hold that construct perfectly stable for 5 minutes.
Without a single intrusive thought breaking the illusion. If you think about your grocery list, you have to start the timer over.
It's brutal. And he extends this to all the bodily senses. He prescribes olfactory concentration, like, can you imagine the smell of a rose or a lilac so vividly that the scent is physically present in your nose, but without allowing a visual image of the flower to appear in your mind? Just the pure scent.
Right, isolating the sensory input.
Yeah. And then sensory concentration. Can you generate the physical feeling of icy cold or extreme gravity and heaviness and hold that physical sensation for 5 minutes?
And Lee Bernal has very similar exercises: object concentration, sound concentration.
But I have to stop here because this is where a lot of people bounce off these texts. I know I almost did.
What do you mean?
Well, if the ultimate goal of all of this, according to Yogananda and these mystics, is spiritual enlightenment, cosmic consciousness, union with the divine, all these grand things, why do these training manuals insist that we focus our intense, sacred concentration on something completely meaningless, like a ticking clock or a random mark on the wall? Why not focus on a spiritual desire or a prayer or a grand goal?
Yeah. It's the most common trap for beginners, and Lee Bernal addresses it directly. The text states that if an attempt is made to focus your early concentration training on a profound desire, the magical effect is immediately short-circuited by a psychological mechanism they call lust of result.
Lust of result, meaning like wanting it too badly.
It's deeper than just wanting it. When you focus on something you deeply care about, say achieving enlightenment, or even just having a successful astral projection, your ego gets instantly involved. Egotistical identification flares up.
Oh, I see.
The fear of failure, the anxiety of whether you're doing it right, the anticipation of the outcome, all of these dualistic emotions flood the brain. They create massive amounts of neurological noise. They instantly turn the coherent laser back into a scattered, frantic lamp.
Wow, okay, it's like trying to thread a needle while someone holds a gun to your head.
That is a perfect analogy, yeah.
The stakes are too high, your hands are going to shake. You can't perform the delicate action because the adrenaline and fear are overwhelming the system. So focusing on a meaningless ticking clock is like practicing threading that needle in an empty, quiet room.
Exactly. You're just training the hand-eye coordination, or in this case, the consciousness matrix, without triggering the ego's survival mechanisms.
That makes so much sense. You are building the raw infrastructural capacity of a mind. You are proving to your own nervous system that your willpower can hold a single frequency without wavering.
And you have to do that before you move on.
Right. So, okay, we've built the laser, but a laser, no matter how perfectly tuned the optics are, still needs a power source. Mental discipline alone isn't enough to pierce the veil of physical reality. We have to move from mental focus to harnessing vital physical energy. We have to energize the vessel.
And this is where we see a fascinating convergence between the yogic approach of Paramahansa Yogananda and the Hermetic approach of Franz Barden.
Two completely different worlds.
Completely different, but they both recognize that the physical body is a battery, and it usually operates at a very, very low voltage.
So let's start with the yogic side. In Autobiography of a Yogi, Yogananda details the ancient practice of Kriya Yoga, and he defines it as the science of withdrawing life force from the physical senses.
Right. Yogananda explains that ordinarily our vital energy is constantly flowing outward. It flows through the optic nerve to see, through the auditory nerve to hear, and a massive amount of it is consumed simply by the involuntary maintenance of the physical body.
Like the heart pump in the lungs.
Exactly. Just staying alive takes huge amounts of energy. Kriya Yoga is a specific biomechanical technique to calm the nervous system to such a degree that the incessant demands of the physical organs basically cease.
Which frees up that life force for higher neurological activity.
Yes.
And he actually gives the specific mechanics of this, which is incredibly rare for a biographical text. He says the Kriya Yogi mentally directs this freed-up vital energy to revolve upward and downward around the 6 final centers.
Right, because the human spine is the central highway of the nervous system. Yogananda identifies these centers: the medullary at the base of the brain, the cervical in the neck, the dorsal behind the heart, the lumbar behind the navel, the sacral, and the coccygeal at the base.
And he makes this staggering cosmic link here. He says these 6 centers have 12 polarities, which correspond directly to the 12 signs of the zodiac.
Yeah, it's a microcosm map.
He claims that the human spine is quite literally a miniature cosmic system. And here's the wildest part, I think. He states that a single half-minute revolution of energy around this spinal cord produces subtle progress in human evolution that is equivalent to 1 year of natural spiritual development.
It sounds impossible until you understand the logic he's applying here. In the yogic framework, human evolution is driven by our exposure to cosmic radiation, specifically the sun.
Right.
As the Earth revolves around the sun over 365 days, the ambient solar energy slowly refines the human nervous system. What Yogananda is saying is that by manually driving your own life force up and down the magnetized spine, you are internally generating the exact same energetic friction and refinement that would normally take a year of passive solar exposure.
So doing this Kriya practice for a few hours is the equivalent of living thousands of years.
Exactly. It's a method of accelerating biological and spiritual evolution.
He specifically says that the body of the average person is like a 50-watt lamp. It simply cannot accommodate the billions of watts of power generated by cosmic consciousness.
It would fry the circuits.
Yeah. The Kriya practice slowly upgrades the physical wiring of the central nervous system so it can handle that kind of immense voltage without literally burning out the brain.
Which perfectly bridges into Barden's Hermetic approach. If Kriya Yoga is upgrading the nervous system's wiring, Barden's step 3 and 4 are about teaching you how to manually pull energy from the environment to charge that upgraded system.
Using a technique he calls pore breathing.
Right. Pore breathing. Instead of just breathing oxygen into your lungs, Barden instructs the practitioner to imagine the entire physical body acting like a dry sponge, inhaling vital ambient energy through every single pore of the skin simultaneously.
And then he applies this pore breathing to the 4 Hermetic elements.
Yes. He provides highly actionable exercises for accumulating elemental energy. Let's look at the fire element, for example. You use pore breathing to inhale the essence of fire from the universe directly into the body.
But this is not just a visualization exercise.
No, absolutely not. Barden is adamant that you must generate actual, measurable physical warmth in your body. He claims an advanced practitioner can produce heat that would literally register on a thermometer.
That's crazy. And he walks you through all of them. After fire, you move to the air element, where the accumulation creates a sensation of immense lightness, a feeling of being completely weightless, like a balloon expanding in the chest.
Yeah.
For the water element, you pull it primarily into the abdomen, generating an icy coolness and a magnetic pull. And for the earth element, it's centered in the legs and the base of the spine, generating a profound sense of gravity, density, and immovability.
But there is a massive, non-negotiable safety warning that Barden emphasizes here, and we really have to state this clearly.
Yeah, listener, pay attention to this part.
Once you accumulate these elemental forces into your biology, you cannot just stop the meditation, get up, and go about your day.
Wait, why? What happens if you just leave the fire element in your body and go to the grocery store?
You'll experience complete elemental imbalance. Barden warns that if you inhale the fire element 7 times, you must explicitly reverse the process and exhale it 7 times, feeling it completely leave the body and dissolve back into the universe.
Okay, so you have to vent the system.
Exactly. If a practitioner fails to do this, the accumulated elemental charge will wreak absolute havoc on the physical and psychological systems. Excess fire can lead to literal fevers, inflammation, or severe anger and mania.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and excess water can lead to severe depression and lethargy. The goal is mastery over the elements, turning your body into an empty, perfectly balanced vessel. You do not want to become possessed by environmental forces.
Right. So we have Yogananda talking about upgrading the spine to handle billions of watts, and Barden teaching us to charge our pores with intense elemental heat and gravity. How does this mystical charging process fit into the strict scientific model from the CIA documents we talked about earlier?
It fits perfectly. If we look at the physics in the Gateway Report, what both Yogananda and Barden are describing is a process of energy entrainment.
Entrainment, like 2 pendulums syncing up on a wall.
Exactly like that. The Gateway document explains that as meditation lowers the blood pressure and induces that profound calm we talked about, the entire physical organ system begins vibrating coherently at a very specific frequency, approximately 7 to 7.5 cycles per second.
Why is 7.5 hertz so important? Is that a magic number?
It's a physics number because that specific frequency resonates precisely with the electrostatic field of the Earth itself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Earth has a natural electromagnetic resonance. By tuning the body's internal vibration to that exact frequency, you are essentially plugging your nervous system directly into the Earth's power grid.
So you aren't just a 50-watt bulb anymore. You are acting as a conduit for planetary energy.
Precisely. The body's energy field becomes homogeneous with the surrounding environment, and by resonating with the Earth's massive electromagnetic sphere, the human body creates a surprisingly powerful carrier wave.
A carrier wave?
Yes. This carrier wave is the raw energetic thrust required to push the seat of consciousness out of the physical brain. You are building up the energy field so that the mind has a vehicle robust enough to travel beyond the skull.
Okay, so we have this massive Earth-resonant energy coursing through the body. The battery is fully charged,
Right.
and the mind is a focused laser.
Right.
But energy without direction is useless. If the body's fully charged, how does the mind actually grab the steering wheel and move out of the physical brain? How do we shift the seat of consciousness?
Barden's training gets incredibly strange and fascinating at this stage. In steps 5 and V, he moves from controlling energy to explicitly transplanting consciousness. And he has you start with inanimate objects.
Yeah, this part blew my mind. He literally says, put a solid object in front of you. Let's say a wooden cube on a table. Fix your eyes on it, memorize its dimensions. Then close your eyes and, using your imagination, transfer your consciousness into the absolute center of that cube.
But again, you aren't just imagining the cube. You have to feel what it is like to literally be the cube. You have to feel your relationship to the table you are sitting on, the temperature of the room around you, the light hitting your surface, all from the perspective of the object.
You are training the mind to detach its perspective from the physical eyes.
Exactly. And once you master inanimate objects, he has you move to animals and then to other human beings, learning to see through their eyes, feel their emotional state, while maintaining your own internal center.
Which feels very Jedi.
It really does. But the most intense exercise he provides is what he calls depth point concentration. He tells you to transfer your consciousness into the absolute center of your own body, the solar plexus.
But it's not just focusing on your stomach, right?
No, you have to imagine your consciousness shrinking down to the size of a poppy seed, or a single atom. He calls this entering the akasa principle of your own being.
The akasa.
Yes, the akasa is the ether, the void from which all elements spring.
But what is the actual mechanism here? Why does shrinking my focus to an atom do anything useful?
It's about collapsing relative scale.
Okay.
Think about it. When your consciousness is entirely identified with your normal physical body, you feel like a small object in a massive universe.
Right. I'm just a guy sitting in a room.
But when you use extreme willpower to shrink your point of consciousness down to a single microscopic atom in the center of your body, your relative perception inverts.
Oh.
Your physical body suddenly appears as a massive surrounding universe. The organs become planets. You become the microscopic, dense center of a macrocosm. This spatial inversion is the Hermetic technique for shifting the seat of consciousness away from the physical brain and into the causal energetic center of the self.
That is deeply trippy. Let's bridge this esoteric shrinking technique to the modern equivalent, though. Because in our sources, we have a transcript from a deep dive done by the Third Eye Drop show, where the host actually travels to the Monroe Institute.
Right, the very facility that developed the HemiSync audio tapes used by the CIA.
Yeah. And he describes his experiential progression through what they call focus levels.
The Monroe Institute mapped out these altered states of consciousness very methodically, stripping away all the mystical language. They start with Focus 10, which they describe simply as mind awake, body asleep.
The host describes this so vividly. It's that deep state of physical relaxation where the body's completely inert, practically paralyzed, but the mind is razor sharp and fully alert. It's the threshold state.
Then he describes moving to Focus 12, which they call a state of expanded awareness. In Focus 12, he specifically mentions feeling a second buzzy energy body emanating from his physical hands.
Right, he could feel this energetic layer moving like a liquid over his skin, even though he knew for a fact his physical hands were paralyzed in the Focus 10 state beneath it.
And that buzzy energy body is exactly what the Hermeticists would call the astral body, and what the Gateway report refers to as the resonant energy field we built up during the charging phase.
Okay, that connection is awesome, but the progression doesn't stop there. The host describes moving deeper into Focus 15.
Yes. Focus 15 is defined by the Institute as the state of no time and no space. It is the exact equivalent of Barden's Akasa depth point.
And the host had this incredibly specific, profound experience in Focus 15. He says he clicked out of normal awareness, and when he came to, he was experiencing these sudden, rapid-fire flashes of complex mathematics, geometric shapes, equations, and structures just tumbling through his awareness.
It's a very common report from that state.
He said he knew unequivocally that it wasn't coming from his own memory or imagination.
And this is where we have to address the fundamental skepticism surrounding these practices.
Exactly. Because when I read that, my first thought was, is his brain just dreaming up random shapes? Like, you know when you fall asleep and dream of a weird house that doesn't make architectural sense?
Right. Hypnagogic imagery.
Yeah. Or is he tapping into something objective? Like, how do we know he isn't just hallucinating math?
To answer that, we have to dive into the physics outlined in the Gateway document, which relies heavily on the theories of quantum physicist David Bohm and neuroscientist Karl Preinbrum.
Okay, hit me with the physics.
The document makes a foundational, mind-bending statement. Solid matter, in the strict construction of the term, simply does not exist.
Wait, it just flat out says matter doesn't exist.
Yes. It says atoms are just oscillating energy grids vibrating at 10 to the 22nd hertz. That's a 10 with 22 zeros.
That's incomprehensibly fast.
Exactly. If you look closely enough at an atom, there is no solid particle. It's just a vortex of energy. Therefore, the entire universe is composed entirely of interacting energy fields.
Okay, I follow that.
Bohm proposed that the universe is, fundamentally, one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. Everything is connected, and every part contains the information of the whole. And Preinbrum showed that the human mind also operates holographically.
Okay, if the universe is a hologram, and my mind is a hologram, how does the mind actually read the universe?
Under normal circumstances, it doesn't read the whole thing. It filters it out for survival. Your physical senses only pick up a tiny, tiny fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Right, just visible light and some sound.
But when a practitioner enters the Akasa depth point or reaches Focus 15, they are moving their consciousness outside of the frequency limitations of normal physical perception. By achieving hemisync, the right hemisphere of the brain, acting in its holistic, non-linear mode, becomes a primary receptor for the infinite holographic input from the universe.
Oh, wow. And the left hemisphere, the binary computer part of the brain, acts as a secondary matrix to translate that raw, infinite data into a two-dimensional conceptual form we can actually understand.
Exactly. So when the host saw flashes of complex geometry and mathematics in Focus 15, he wasn't dreaming. Mathematics and geometry are the base code, the fundamental structure of the universal hologram.
He was seeing the code.
He was acting as a binary receptor, reading the raw, timeless source code of reality before his physical brain had a chance to dress it up and translate it into a 3D physical environment. He was literally looking at the matrix.
That is staggering. It totally recontextualizes what a vision actually is,
Yeah.
but it also presents a really practical problem for the practitioner.
What's that?
Well, if we are reading source code, just raw math and geometry, how do we get actual pictures and sounds? If we want to interact with these subtle realms, we have to build the sensory organs capable of translating that code into a usable format, right? We have to unlock latent astral clairvoyance.
Yes, exactly. This requires the development of what Israel Regardie, in his masterwork The Tree of Life, calls the body of light.
Regardie describes the astral light as this pulsating ocean of vitality that surrounds and permeates everything. He calls it the imagination of nature and the memory of nature.
It's beautiful phrasing.
It is. Every thought we think, every action we perform, leaves an indelible, vibrating impression on this astral matter. It's an eternal, energetic record.
But to read that record, to actually perceive the astral light, your physical optic nerves and your physical eardrums are utterly useless. You have to develop the sensory organs of your solar vehicle, your body of light.
So the energy body has its own set of eyes and ears.
Yes, but in most people, they are completely dormant. They've never been used.
And Franz Barton, in Step the Seventh, provides the most incredibly specific, almost bizarre physical rituals for unlocking these latent senses. He calls it developing clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentience.
And it relies heavily on a physical tool he calls a fluid condenser.
Yeah. A fluid condenser in Hermetic magic is a physical substance, usually a liquid or an amalgam of metals, that is particularly adept at holding a magical or elemental charge. For these sensory exercises, Barden provides a very accessible recipe: a strong decoction of chamomile flowers boiled in distilled water.
So basically chamomile tea.
Okay, I have to push back here. We just spent 20 minutes talking about quantum holograms and acoustic standing waves in HemiSync. And now you're telling me that to get divine eyes, I need to boil a chamomile tea bag.
I know how it sounds.
What is the actual mechanism that makes a flower hold an astral charge? Because it sounds like we just crossed the line from physics back into, like, medieval superstition.
It sounds totally absurd until you understand the Hermetic law of sympathetic resonance.
Sympathetic resonance, explain that.
The physical body and the etheric body are intricately linked. The etheric body needs a physical anchor to direct its energy. Certain plants and minerals have an etheric signature that closely matches the frequency of specific astral energies.
Well.
Chamomile, in Hermetic herbalism, is deeply associated with solar and optical energy. When you boil it, you are extracting its etheric matrix into the water. It acts as a perfect sponge for the specific frequency of light required to stimulate the optic region of the astral body.
Okay, so it's like using a very specific type of metal antenna to catch a specific radio frequency.
Exactly, it's an organic antenna.
All right, I'll buy that. Let's walk through the exact step-by-step process for clairvoyance, or inner sight. Barden instructs the magician to use pore breathing to inhale the universal light, or the fire element, into their body.
Right, you fill yourself with this brilliant, blinding white light.
And you impregnate it with the intense, unwavering desire for inner sight. Then you soak 2 cotton pads in the cold chamomile fluid condenser. You lie down, and you place these wet pads directly over your physical closed eyes.
And then the active mechanics come in. You use your trained willpower and imagination to project that accumulated programmed light out of your body and directly into the fluid condenser sitting on your physical eyes.
So you're literally charging the optical region with high-voltage elemental energy that has been programmed to awaken the dormant astral eyes.
Precisely. And he has analogous, highly specific exercises for the other subtle senses as well.
Clairaudience.
Yes. For clairaudience, the ability to hear the subtle realms and the voices of spiritual beings, you accumulate the air element. You impregnate it with the desire for inner hearing. You soak small cotton plugs in the chamomile condenser, place them gently in your ears, and project the accumulated air element into them.
And for clairsentience, which includes psychometry, the ability to physically feel the history of objects or the emotions of a space, you use the water element. You accumulate it, program it for clear feeling, and project its magnetic attractive power into a condenser pad placed directly on the solar plexus, the emotional center of the body.
It's vital to understand the theory behind this. You aren't giving your physical retinas the ability to see spirits. You are using the physical condenser and the intense elemental energy as a bridge. The physical stimulation forces the corresponding sensory centers in the astral body to awaken and begin processing the holographic data of the universe into visual and auditory information.
But Barden is incredibly stern about the dangers here. He highlights a strict, honestly terrifying warning regarding spontaneous visions.
Yes, he does. We sometimes hear about people who suddenly start seeing auras or hearing voices or seeing spirits after a severe physical trauma, a near-death experience, a severe illness, or by dabbling in spiritualism and psychedelics without any foundational training.
Right, it happens.
Barden views this not as a magical gift, but as a severe pathological symptom.
A pathological symptom, why?
Because the astral matrix, the energetic webbing connecting the physical body to the astral body, has been damaged or loosened unnaturally. The person has no control over the input. They are being flooded with data from the astral light, and their unupgraded nervous system cannot handle the voltage.
It's like plugging a toaster into a nuclear reactor.
Exactly. Barden warns that this kind of uncontrolled, spontaneous clairvoyance often leads to nervous exhaustion, psychological breakdown, and in severe cases, institutionalization.
So true inner sight, according to this system, must be a controlled biological toggle.
Yeah.
You have to be able to turn it on through willful focus, and just as importantly, you must be able to turn it off.
You have to be able to close the eye.
If you can't dissolve the light back into the universe and return to normal, mundane physical sight, you are in danger of becoming a victim of astral intoxication. You'll literally lose your grip on the physical world.
This whole arduous process of building new sensory organs provides incredible context for a story found in the Bhagavad Gita, which we also have in our source stack today.
Oh, right. The story of Arjuna.
Yeah. There's a famous scene where the warrior Arjuna is asking his charioteer, who is the Lord Krishna, to reveal his true, unlimited cosmic form. Arjuna wants to see the raw reality behind the physical illusion.
Right. And Krishna's response is incredibly telling based on everything we've just learned.
Yeah.
He doesn't just say, okay, here I am. He says, you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore, I give you divine eyes.
Exactly. He has to physically or spiritually alter Arjuna's perceptual apparatus first. The physical eyes would burn out trying to process the cosmic hologram.
Barden's chamomile fluid condensers and elemental breathing exercises are quite literally the step-by-step hermetic technology for building those divine eyes. It's the manual labor required to receive the vision.
It is.
So we have the vehicle, we've charged the battery, we've painstakingly opened its astral eyes and ears.
Yeah.
Now it's time to take it out of the garage. We are moving into the mastery of astral projection and mental wandering.
This is where the training moves from internal sensation to external navigation. Barden's Step 8 outlines the preliminary process for actually leaving the physical body behind. He calls it mental wandering.
And it begins with a remarkably simple yet difficult exercise using a mirror.
Yeah, it's very practical.
You sit in front of a large mirror and meticulously memorize your own reflection. Every detail, every shadow on your face, the exact posture of your body. Then you close your eyes and reconstruct that reflection perfectly in your imagination.
But here's the critical leap. You don't just look at the imaginary reflection like a picture on a screen. You use that depth point concentration we talked about to mentally transfer your consciousness into the reflection.
Oh, wow.
You pivot your awareness so that you feel you are inside the mirror, looking back at your own physical body sitting in the chair.
You have to feel entirely personified in that reflection. And once you can maintain that stability without snapping back into your physical body, you attempt to walk around the room in this mental body. You observe the objects in your room from this new, detached perspective.
And Barden insists on rigorous verification here. This isn't a license to daydream. He tells the practitioner to leave their house in the mental body, go visit a neighbor or a friend, observe exactly what they're doing, what they're wearing, who they're talking to, and then you must physically go check later to ensure you are actually seeing reality.
You have to apply the scientific method to your own magic to prove you aren't just hallucinating.
Exactly. You need proof.
But mental wandering is just sending a probe out. Your emotional and energetic core is still largely in the physical shell. Step IX is true astral separation, the full out-of-body experience. And the physiological requirements for this are extreme.
They really are. To fully separate the astral body, which carries your vital life force, you don't just transfer consciousness. Barden says you must transfer your awareness into the astral shape and begin breathing only in the astral body.
How does a body of light breathe?
It breathes etheric energy, not oxygen. But the implication for the physical body is massive.
Right, because it's left behind.
When you successfully initiate breathing solely in the astral body, the physical body reacts drastically. Because the vital life force is being withdrawn, the physical body will literally cease breathing.
It stops breathing completely.
Yes, its limbs will stiffen. It will enter a state of deep, corpse-like lethargy or suspended animation until the astral body returns. The heart rate drops to almost nothing.
That sounds utterly terrifying. You are essentially simulating death. And to validate how visceral and intense this separation is, we have to talk about Robert Monroe's personal experience, the founder of the Monroe Institute, the guy who mapped out the focus levels we discussed.
Right. Monroe was experimenting with these altered states long before he understood the esoteric frameworks.
Yeah.
He describes a night where he is lying in bed, vibrating, and suddenly he finds himself floating up against the ceiling of his bedroom.
He looks down and he sees his bed. He sees his wife sleeping in the bed. But then he sees a man lying in bed next to his wife.
He assumes it's some sort of weird, lucid Freudian dream. So he floats down to get a better look at the guy. And with absolute mind-shattering shock, he realizes the man in bed with his wife is himself.
I want to linger on that moment for a second, because imagine the sheer existential dread. For your entire life, you have believed that you are your body, that flesh and blood is your absolute boundary, and suddenly you are hovering over it, looking at it like an empty meat suit.
It shatters your reality.
Well, notice the realization that he was entirely separate from his physical shell induced absolute terror. His immediate emotional surge was, I am dead. I don't want to die. Let me get back in there.
He frantically swims through the air, dives desperately back into his physical body, and wakes up sitting bolt upright in bed, heart pounding out of his chest. He didn't sleep the rest of the night.
That perfectly illustrates that the astral body is not a daydream. When you separate, it feels as hyper-real, if not more real than physical waking life. It validates the visceral, objective reality of the second body.
So, if you successfully separate and you manage to get past the initial shock and terror of being unhoused, where do you go? What does the astral world actually look like?
For that, we turn to one of the most astonishing and beautiful chapters in Autobiography of a Yogi. Yogananda's beloved guru, Sri Yukteswar, dies. Yogananda is absolutely heartbroken, mourning the loss of his master. But sometime later, while Yogananda is sitting in a hotel room in Bombay, the room is flooded with a beatific light, and Sri Yukteswar physically materializes in front of him.
A resurrected body. Not a ghost, but a fully materialized form.
Yes, and Yogananda literally tackles him in a hug. He says he could feel the texture of his robe, the gritty surface of his canvas shoes, the familiar smell of him. Sri Yukteswar explains that he is resurrected on an illuminated, highly advanced astral planet called Hiranyaloka.
To serve as a savior for advanced beings there.
Exactly. And he proceeds to describe the anatomy and physics of the astral cosmos to Yogananda in incredible detail.
He explains that the astral universe is hundreds of times larger and more complex than the material cosmos. He describes the entire physical creation hanging like a small, dense, solid basket beneath the enormous luminous balloon of the astral sphere.
And the beings who live there possess an astral anatomy. They don't have physical organs as we know them. Sri Yukteswar says they have an astral brain with 1,000-petaled lotus of light and 6 awakened energetic centers in the astral spine.
And they don't eat solid food. They sustain themselves primarily by consuming cosmic light.
And travel. They don't use cars or planes. Sri Yukteswar says they travel instantly from planet to planet via rays of light, simply by acting on their will. If they want to be somewhere, the thought moves their light body instantly.
Furthermore, their sensory perception is entirely different. We talked about building divine eyes. In the astral realm, they possess a third vertical astral eye on the forehead.
Wow.
But more than that, they use intuition as a true sixth sense. Sri Yukteswar says they can see through their skin or taste with their ears or hear with their eyes.
Because they are reading the raw holographic data of the universe, the sensory data is processed directly through pure intuition. They don't need dedicated organs to translate it.
Exactly.
But this incredible description brings up a really poignant emotional question for me. Sri Yukteswar mentions that when a soul arrives in the astral world, they're greeted by a multitude of relatives, fathers, mothers, wives, husbands, friends, that they acquired during dozens or hundreds of different incarnations on Earth.
Right, because in this framework, we live many, many lives.
So think about the implications of that. If you project there, or if you die and go there, and you are suddenly surrounded by 50 different people who are all your mother in different past lives, or 10 different soulmates from different centuries, how do you even know who to love? Doesn't that completely destroy the special, unique bond of family?
It's a beautiful, difficult question. And Yogananda records Sri Yukteswar's profound answer. He says that because there are so many relatives from countless incarnations clamoring for affection, the astral being is forced to learn the ultimate spiritual lesson.
Which is,
to give equal divine love to all beings.
oh wow.
You realize that almost everyone was your mother or your child or your enemy at some point in the cosmic cycle. You stop clinging to exclusive, possessive, earthly attachments, my family, my spouse, and you learn to love every single entity as a unique, individualized expression of the divine. It shatters tribalism completely.
Wow. It forces your love to expand to a universal scale.
Right.
But as incredible as Hiranyaloka and the astral cosmos sound, Sri Yukteswar drops another bombshell.
Yeah.
He tells Yogananda that the astral world is still not the final destination.
Right.
The astral world, with all its light, its flying, its beautiful colors, is still a subtle illusion. It is still dualistic. Which brings us to the ultimate peak of our deep dive, the final realization. Cosmic consciousness and the causal realm.
Beyond the gross physical world of matter and beyond the subtle astral world of light lies the causal world. Sri Yukteswar explains that the causal world is indescribably subtle. It is the matrix from which everything else is projected.
And it is made entirely of the 35 thought ideas of God.
Thought ideas, not matter, not even astral light, just pure consciousness.
Yes, causal beings exist simply as forms of pure consciousness. They don't eat food. They don't even eat cosmic light. They eat only the manna of bliss. They have no physical or astral obstructions. Whatever they can imagine, they manifest instantaneously in reality through pure thought. They exist in the realm of raw potential.
So how does a human being trapped in a heavy physical body ever experience that causal state? How do you pierce through the physical shell and then pierce through the astral shell to reach the absolute core?
Yogananda describes his own experience of this, a state called samadhi, or cosmic consciousness, and it is arguably one of the most vivid, detailed descriptions of mystical illumination ever recorded in human history.
It happens earlier in the book when he is still a young student. His guru, Sri Yukteswar, sees that Yogananda's mind is perfectly attuned. The lamp is a laser, the battery is charged, and Sri Yukteswar gently taps him on the chest just above the heart.
The physical reaction is instantaneous. Yogananda says his body became immovably rooted to the ground. The breath was drawn out of his lungs as if by a massive internal magnet.
He felt his soul and mind lose their physical bondage and flow out of his pores like a fluid penetrating light. He felt physically dead, but simultaneously more fully alive and aware than ever before.
The sensory shift is staggering. He describes his normal frontal vision, looking out of two eyes, transforming into a vast 360-degree spherical vision. He is perceiving in all directions simultaneously.
Right. He says he could see through the back of his head. He watched men walking down a distant road behind him, and he saw a white cow calmly approaching the ashram.
And as the cow walked behind the solid brick wall of the courtyard, he could still see it clearly. The spiritual X-ray sight penetrated all matter. The physical world was no longer an obstruction.
But then the vision goes deeper. He moves past the astral perception and into the causal. He says all objects around him, his own body, the master's body, the pillars of the building, the trees, began to tremble and vibrate violently.
Until everything dissolved into a luminescent sea. He uses this incredibly beautiful analogy. He says it was like sugar crystals thrown into a glass of water, dissolving after being shaken.
The solid physical illusion melted away, and the realization hit him with oceanic joy. The universe isn't solid. His body is not flesh and bone. It is just a mass of light atoms sustained entirely by the mind of God.
If we connect this profoundly Eastern devotional experience back to the stark modern framework of Liber Null and the CIA documents, we see the exact same endpoint described in different terminology. Liber Null calls this the ultimate goal of magic, transubstantiation.
Transubstantiation, the changing of one substance into another.
Yes. In the language of chaos magic, the Kia, which is the individual life force, the localized consciousness of the practitioner, completely merges with chaos, the great undefined infinite life force of the universe. The boundary between the self and the all is eradicated. The drop of water returns to the ocean.
Yogananda describes that exact merger. At the peak of samadhi, he says he realized he was just a little bubble of laughter within the infinite sea of happiness. He completely escaped the dualistic matrix of time and space. He wasn't observing the ocean, he became the ocean.
It is a staggering progression to map out. We started by looking at ordinary awareness, treating the chaotic mind like a diffused lamp, and we learned how the physical resonance of the heart and the discipline of meaningless focus can hone it into a coherent laser.
We took that laser and powered it up. We explored how yogic kriya techniques and hermetic pore breathing upgrade the nervous system and accumulate elemental forces, turning the body into a massive carrier wave resonating with the earth itself.
We examined the mechanics of shifting the seat of consciousness, using the Akasa depth point to collapse our spatial perception, tuning into the Monroe Institute's Focus 15, and acting as a binary receptor to read the universal hologram.
We unlocked the latent sensory organs. We built the body of light using physical anchors like chamomile fluid condensers, safely triggering clairvoyance and clairaudience rather than falling victim to spontaneous pathological visions.
We navigated the astonishing realities of astral separation, the sheer terror of leaving the body, and the complex anatomy and universal love found in the astral cosmos.
And finally, we pierced the last veil, arriving at the causal realm in the state of samadhi, where physical reality dissolves like sugar in water. It moves visions out of the realm of fantasy and grounds them in a precise, demanding science of human potential.
Which leaves us with a final massive paradigm shift to consider.
Exactly. We've spent this whole deep dive treating the physical body as the real you, right? And we've talked about the astral body or the mental body as this secondary projection, this temporary drone that you build and send out into the ether before returning to your real life.
That is the default human assumption. We are physical beings who occasionally have spiritual experiences.
But based on the universal holographic model the CIA was studying, and Yogananda's description of the causal world as the true origin point of the soul, What if our default assumption is the exact reverse of the truth?
Oh, wow.
What if your body of light, that causal matrix of pure consciousness, is the actual permanent you, and this physical life, this dense world of gravity, alarm clocks, broken bones, and taxes, is just a temporary, incredibly heavy biological diving suit you put on to explore a very slow-moving holographic simulation?
It flips the whole script.
Yeah.
If that perspective is true, then these esoteric exercises, the poor breathing, the mirrors, the intense focus, they aren't magic spells designed to give a human being superpowers.
Right. They aren't magic at all. They're just the user manual for learning how to take the suit off.
Something to think about the next time you look in the mirror. We want to thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll see you next time.